Tough as Nails. Season 4 is in the books, and we're here with a recap of the 2-hour finale here with our Tough as Nails Savage crew. First, here with us, a woman who nailed once again the Tough as Nails Edgic. Here she is, Jessica Lees. Jess, how are you?
Great, Rob. Before we get started, I have a message going out to an
Yes?
audience of one. This one goes out to Phil Kogan.
Yes.
Phil, your challenge, should you accept it for season 5 of Tough as Nails? Tell the story in a way that I don't peg the winner in the first half of the season.
Okay. All right. Challenge maybe accepted?
It's ball's in your court, Phil. The pickleball is now in your court.
Okay. All right. Just throwing down the gauntlet, of course, here with a man who, of course, is his tongue is never in knots like Mr. Rope. It's Mike Bloom. Mike, how are you?
Yeah, but I have a tough time reeling things back in. Once it's out there, I have a tough time bringing it back. I'm like Tanithia on the spool. Yeah, happy that Jess was throwing it down like 3 sandbags at once to see if the wrestling promo that we created, if Phil will respond.
180 pounds of shade.
Wow. All right. Jess is fired up here tonight here for the finale. And it was a fun one. And we'll break it all down for Tough as Nails, which Tough as Nails in the CBS News. It is going to be back for Tough as Nails season 5 officially.
Congratulations to everybody. Very excited.
Yeah, more Tough as Nails.
I mean, it was news, but I'll put quotations around the NEW of that, considering Tough as Nails technically got renewed for season 5 a year ago. In March 2022, it was announced that it was coming back for season 5. Season 5 has yet to film, but it has been officially announced that it'll be airing in the 2023-2024 cycle. So essentially from the fall until May. They do things sometimes. Actually, Phil's other show, Amazing Race, just got renewed for the season that had already been filmed.
It was soft launched, Tough as Nails season 5, and now.
Yeah, but I don't believe season 5's actually been filmed yet. So who knows? Maybe we'll be talking about this a year from now. Maybe we'll be talking about it next summer. I'm not entirely sure, but very happy, especially after probably the most competitive Tough as Nails season we have ever seen. I'm really excited to see where they go for number 5.
Yeah, also in the headlines this week, also The Amazing Race officially renewed for... Now, that's not the season that they've already filmed, or...
No, it is.
Okay. Well, I should hope they renew it. I mean, they already filmed it.
Well, with Amazing Race, it's one of those things where even if they don't officially renew it, they can bring it back whenever they want. So it's like, we're just going to sit on this season for up to 2 years.
Yeah. We just saw this happen with season 32, right? That thing was in the can for as long as, I don't know, Sanithia's been a carpenter, basically. And they decided, okay, we're going to dust this off. It's a pandemic. We'll allow this season to air. So, yeah, I mean, I would imagine they were allowed, you know, the network has to pay for this. So I imagine they were in some inclination ready to bring back the show at some point. But now, officially, we're going to be getting another double dose of Phil for the 2023-2024 television season.
Okay.
Put that man on Paramount.
Yeah, please, before it's too late. Okay. All right, let's start with our headlines at this hour. The winner of Tough as Nails, Season 4, it's George. Congratulations to George, ending up as the winner of the season. Jess, are you celebrating at your house tonight?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're fans of anybody named George.
Mm-hmm.
It's a banner night. Obviously, it would be hard not to root for the guy. He had such a compelling story, really exciting competitor, and everybody was great, but George was extra great tonight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mike, I felt like that Sergio also a co-win for him. Very pumped up.
Yeah, I honestly, my heart swelled a little bit when he's, shouting to him, mijo, which, for those that don't speak Spanish, is a very affectionate term that people give, which is sort of technically a mashup of my son. And the fact that we had this conversation last week, right, with Sergio and George talking about how, they fill in each other's holes in their lives with the people that they lost. I thought that was an incredibly sweet moment. Of course, it's always nice when the sort of underdog team, the one that doesn't win the big prize, does have the symbolic win. Like seeing Dirty Hands putting their dirty hands all over each other in excitement, watching George ascend that rope ladder was really nice to see. But it came at the end of, fittingly for this season, an incredibly neck and neck finish. I might go down now in saying that I think the Tough as Nails final gauntlet might be like my favorite individual challenge on a CBS reality show.
Wow.
I mean, it has yet to like dull any excitement for me. I think it's really well done. I think it's really plotted out nicely, and as we see here, it leads to like pulse pounding, heart beating moments where three of these guys are right there with the car in front of them and $200,000, and all it comes down to is one knot at the end, and that's what leads to victory and defeat.
Mm-hmm. Makes me very nervous. I feel like there's a lot of like sawing and racing at the same time. Like there's some moments where like these guys get like the hacksaw and they're like going crazy, and I'm like, please, I don't want anybody to lose a finger on this.
There've been so many moments on Tough as Nails. I feel like Tough as Nails always has that extra layer, and it's the thing that people used to say about Survivor, where they were like, we're pretty sure someone's going to resort to cannibalism or starve to death out there or something. But I think Tough as Nails it's on that same, you get in that same kind of tension headspace of somebody might hurt themselves tonight. This could be the night when it really happens.
Is that what people want to see?
People don't want to see it.
Yeah, it's really
It's like an
ASMR.
Yeah, it's an ASMR thing almost. Like you don't want to see it, but the idea that it might happen like gives you this like frisson.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was less about the saw and more so about the I-beam they had to cross free walking style without any sort of harness or equipment.
Yeah, because they didn't harness up until after they got the net down, right?
I was most worried about Jake getting across the beam. Seemed like that he seemed like that maybe that was not his thing, and he was like definitely trying to make up some time there in the final challenge. But really, I think the big moment from that final gauntlet that they went through was Mr. and George are really neck and neck, and Mr. is pulling his rope through and then hits the dreaded knot. And for all intents and purposes, it was over right there, Mike.
Yeah, I love the cinematography, though. It is really weird to say on paper, yeah, the most climactic moment of a final challenge. The difference between $200,000 and Bupkis was a knot in a rope. But I thought it was done really well. The slow-mo shot of the knot just thudding against the post, and then like everyone just being crestfallen, cutting to Mr., who is like beyond words. And this is Mr. Frost, the man who is of 1,000 sounds, essentially. Him just silently stunned, standing there, trying to think about the one tangle that led to him losing out on the money. It was really epic to see. It's akin to some of those great sports competitions, right? Where it often comes down to like the final drive. Probably a more interesting outcome, Rob, than the Super Bowl here. No officiating.
No flag thrown on this. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing under fire here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No holding.
It was all very exciting and very close, and then it was not.
I don't know if Mr. is ready for that.
No, probably too soon. Sorry, Mr.
Too soon. Okay, so George ultimately ends up being the Tough as Nails winners, but it was a a big night through 2 hours of Tough as Nails. Should we go back through the 2 hours?
Yeah, because Mr., I would say up until 10:55 p.m. had a pretty dang good night, considering he single-handedly won $19,000 for himself in the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not too shabby. We had the teams facing off for one more team challenge, even though the $60,000 prize had already been decided, but it was the classic Battle of the Trades. This time, the 3 disciplines. Jess, of course, the big 3 disciplines in the trades: chopping wood, pulling weight, and cutting tires.
Ah, yes, the 3 genders. This is interesting because I'm of 2 minds. I love the tradition of the Battle of the Trades. It's a neat idea, a neat game format. I like that we're trying to make a thing happen here.
Mm-hmm.
But there's an element of tough as nails that is really special about the show that gets lost in these last 2 episodes, and we need to figure out how to tie it all together somehow. And that is the sort of how it's made / dirty jobs / today we're going to learn how people do a job kind of thing. There's nothing educational about the Battle of the Trades. They're doing stuff we already did, and we're just kind of doing it round robin style. And I really found myself missing that element of today we're going to go to this place where these people do this thing every day that you never thought about that's really, really hard, and you're going to figure out how to do it. And it took me out of it a little bit.
Yeah.
I will say that much.
I don't know.
Have they done? Go ahead, Mike.
I do like ending with it, though. Like we talked about with the log sawing back in season 1. I really like the 1v1 showdowns. I think as much as we've talked about there not being a lot of team interaction either amongst the teams or within the teams, I did sort of like the pseudo rivalries that were kind of called out amongst all of this. And I really liked something that I actually just saw recently in RuPaul's Drag Race Lollapalooza episode, which is, okay, one person picks their opponent, and then that person picks the trade to do. Because I think there actually is some fun strategy in that, right? Of like Allie picking Laura because it's, hey, these 2 trades I know she's not good at. And, then Laura saying, okay, let me pick the thing that I know Allie doesn't have experience with. So that way we're at least on even playing ground. I think there's some fun gameplay elements about that have been mixed in, much like all of season 4. I agree with you to a certain extent, Jess. I felt better about it that it was like part of the finale, because then it makes it just feel more like something completely different. I just wonder, how could we still include those 1v1 matchups, but then also do hey, isn't this job and occupation and industry interesting?
Well, they did this kind of in season 1 because it was all lumberjack stuff.
Yeah, but I like the diversity of activities. Because I think with that, it's like, arm strength and momentum and all that stuff. I like the fact that, again, there was choice involved as to what you could do. So maybe you just pick an industry that has a number of jobs that you're able to do within this little quarry that they were in, and do that way.
Yeah, I will remind you in season 1, Mike, they had multiple different types of lumberjacking going on.
Yeah, there were
multiple
many
saws.
Yeah, there were axes and saws and some other thing that I'm not remembering.
Yeah. What was confusing to me was, okay, it was head to head. Okay, pick your battle. And then there was like one round in the middle where, okay, now do everything. And then after that, we went back to like solo rounds. I kind of feel like that the 2-pointer, I guess maybe like they felt like, okay, well, maybe if we do the 2-pointer too late, it could be out of hand. But it just seemed weird that they did the big 2-pointer, all the disciplines in the middle.
No, I actually I think it makes sense though if you plot it out, because so it ended up being what, like 4-3 by the time they went into that final one. If Laura had beat Allie in that final activity, it would have been 4-4, and then it would have been the all the trades for all the marbles. And I think that's the outcome they wanted to go for from a TV perspective. And maybe they hedged their bets of like, literally everything has been close this season. It'll probably come down to this sudden death thing. It just didn't get to that point. So I agree. I initially was like, why are we resetting back here? But I would imagine they were trying to build towards this hopeful outcome of, okay, it's all on the line. This one person has to do all 3 tasks for the win.
I can fix this.
Yes.
I know how to fix this. You make that one of the options. Like person A on Savage Crew gets to pick their opponent from Dirty Hands. Their opponent from Dirty Hands can choose. They can choose task A, task B, task C, or they can throw down the gauntlet and you get triple points, but you have to do all the things.
Oh, like the old double dare.
Exactly. We're going to double dare into the physical challenge.
Yeah. Can they do it multiple times? Do we have enough time to do multiple, all 3?
I mean, portions of the competition not affecting the outcome are always edited out of the program, Rob.
I don't know if they have enough of those prop giant stakes. That's the thing that I was intrigued by, is I guess the stakes were raised literally in this finale. I did not realize that I guess the, thing to represent Tough as Nails is the stake. It's to what Survivor is to the torch, Big Brother is to the key. I suppose Tough as Nails now is the giant nail.
Giant nail. It's a giant nail. Yeah.
So what is Amazing Race in this equation?
I I guess it's the clue. I feel like it's
Yeah.
usually when people talk about like a symbol for the show, like an emoji that's affiliated with it. I feel like it's usually like the globe.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
the show's so transient that it's tough to find like a recurring prop besides the gnome.
I do feel like they really, in these 2 hours, tried to make the giant steak a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the same way they tried to make the giant badge a thing. And it was unsuccessful, and so they made it smaller.
Maybe they were just fearful there was a vampire amongst the cast, and so they really wanted to like put the fear of life into them. Of,
Yeah,
like,
it's not
hey,
a wooden steak, Mike.
I mean, I think the material of steak doesn't necessarily matter.
Yeah,
I think more
no,
Depends on the
I'm pretty sure it
mythology.
does.
Yeah.
Right?
I think like any steak will do, depending on the
Any
vampire.
steak?
Like, what about like a tuna steak?
I think if it just goes through the heart, I think it's okay. I don't know if the wooden property necessarily is the thing that's going to deteriorate a vampire.
I mean, it depends on your mythology, Mike, because I believe like the Stoker vampire, it's got to be a wooden steak.
Mm-hmm.
And rice vampires, you can stab them in the heart all you want; they're still going to be alive. Don't know what they did with them in Salem's Lot.
Should that be one of the 3 disciplines of like kill a vampire?
I like this. And different kinds of vampires. Like, are you killing Lestat? Are you killing Edward Cullen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would love this actually if we do one week that's like theme park workers are an all-time beleaguered industry. You're going to walk through Fright Nights at Six Flags and stake as many vampires as you can.
Load up this truck for the haunted hayride.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we had our battles. I guess we can go through some of the highlights. Alima versus Beth. Of course, Beth. This was a showcase for her. Probably the last real highlight she has over the course of the season. Beth gets it done.
She left it all on the field too.
Mm-hmm.
I was impressed by this showing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Alima had an issue with her glove getting caught also.
Yeah, it clipped out. And Beth, I think, showcased the optimal strategy for the spool, right? Which was to like, sort of like the wheel on The Price is Right, right? You reach up as high as you can and then just
There was a lot of that
down.
tonight also. You know,
yeah, it was a big night for spinning wheels.
Spinning wheels for George and Mr. too. All right. Then we had the first of 2 matchups between Allie and Laura. This one goes to Laura, but sets up the climactic battle between Allie and Laura later.
Yeah, and this is something we've seen, right? This is, I remember, an overtime challenge from the first couple seasons of when they were talking about the bead. I'm like, okay, I know about the bead. I remember the bead. Survivor 44 isn't on yet, but we're already talking about beads.
Yeah. Phil was standing by with a fire extinguisher also in case this was going to what was going to burst into flame, the tire.
I mean, anytime you're grinding something, I think you get sparks.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Friction does, I think, create heat. But shouldn't he have given it to Ellery? Didn't Ellery have a better use of the fire extinguisher than Phil?
Yeah, I feel like if they thought it was a real danger, I don't think they would have entrusted it to Phil.
Ellery is standing by with the fire extinguisher. Okay.
That could have been a rare opportunity for a joke that Phil missed, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. In the third battle, we saw Sergio versus Jake. Jake wasn't messing around tonight.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing to take away here, right, was Sergio says, oh, I should swing this like a sledgehammer. Cut to Jake saying, you should not swing it like a sledgehammer. That's what ends up doing Laren in as well, right? That if you try to treat the blunt object like the sharp object, you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah. I would not have known that.
Yeah, I think because it's
news to me.
I think because there's like a fine point to it. It's more about the leverage and less about, again, like the brute force that it would take. So he talks about like swinging it over your shoulder like you're one of the 7 dwarves doesn't matter as much as like the easy over the head and down, which I think allows the point to more finely, evenly hit the wood.
Mike, I feel like you're ready to go.
And it's where you hit it too. It's like where you hit it wood-wise, because if you get it clean in there, it's going to split it down the middle.
Yeah, and Rob just said I am wood wise.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would accuse you of being wood dumb.
All right. So we had Ellery versus Laren here in the battle of all 3 disciplines. And for Ellery, this was a high point, I think, in the show for him as well.
I mean, by comparison to what's gonna happen to him, I guess.
I mean, in the series, I think.
Yeah, he did have that win in the very beginning, or not in the very beginning, the one that he made redemption for losing for before. That was a really good one. But yeah, I like this. The oldest contestant versus the youngest one, and the fact that he was able to. We've talked about Laren this entire season and the fastness that he had. But yeah, it seems like Ellery was able to get the jump on him. And I agree. It was a very good look for him. Obviously, the best look he's going to have in the next hour or so.
Then we had George versus Mister. Some foreshadowing, Jess. We didn't even realize it at the time.
Yeah. I mean, I think the two of them have kind of they've been cultivating that all season, whether or not it was something they were really cultivating or something they're subconsciously setting us up for. But
yeah. And it kind of ends in a similar fashion where it's very, very close. And like Mister ends up like having like a bad move where I think he tried to then just like rip the tire with his bare hands. And ultimately he came up short and George gets the best of him for the first of a couple times tonight.
Yeah, he tried to be Mr. Hulk, but he ended up being more so Mr. Banner.
Yeah. So ultimately, George ends up winning that one. It's down to one win away for Dirty Hands. We get Sanithia versus Renee, and Renee with the win.
Yeah, I think this was one of those things, right, where it came down to they were hauling a percentage of their body weight as well. So I think, again, if you didn't have that good leverage, I think Beth has that good, to use one of Phil's power slogans, power to weight ratio. I think she has that in spades, despite the fact that she might have a slighter frame. And I think that combined with Sanithia perhaps gassing out on the spool allowed Renee to take it here. I think definitely, unfortunately, probably the lone highlight moment for both of these two. I did think it was interesting that the last two people to go up against each other were the first two people eliminated from the season in general.
Okay. Then we end up with, for all the marbles, Allie versus Laura, part 2. And this is going to be in Allie's wheelhouse, Jeff's chopping the wood.
Yeah, this was as exciting as watching somebody do chores can be. This was very exciting.
Yeah. So we go back and forth. It turns out, Mike, that the winning strategy, Allie had the right hand hands to the left hand, the relay race.
The old Tom Cruise and cocktail approach. She's got tricks that she pulled up on her grandparents' farm back in the day. Yeah, around the shoulder, shaking it up.
Mike, did you ever watch that movie?
I've seen bits and pieces. I feel like I've not seen the thing in full.
Yeah. Jess, have you seen that movie?
I don't remember if I've actually seen it or not, but when
I've seen a lot for some reason.
Well,
I don't know why.
When I was 12, I owned the soundtrack on cassette, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall if I've actually
It was
seen the entire thing.
in the collection of movies that I don't know why we had the VHS tape, but during my formative college years when we didn't pay the cable bill, that happened to be a movie that was like one of the movies that we had.
Yeah. Well, I famously loathe Tom Cruise, so I wasn't going to seek that one out.
Okay. All right. So ultimately for Allie, she gets the win. She gets to hold the money and even gets to shake Phil's hand.
Yeah, she's been waiting to do that this entire time.
Yeah, because you're not allowed to until you do, I guess.
Yeah, Phil, maybe talk about double dares. Phil, the Mark Summers type, to be like, you can't touch me. You have dirty hands.
I think Phil is very giving with the handshakes of the Toughest Nails contestants.
I'd wager Phil would even hug you if you wanted.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe not on The Amazing Race, but certainly here on Tough as Nails. And but I wonder, is it like a coffee is for closers thing? Is it like a Hollywood handshake of like, hey, you only winners get to shake my hand.
You get the Phil pat, the pat on the back if you win the challenge for your team.
Yeah. So congratulations to Allie, and so that was a nice victory for dirty hands here.
Yeah, and they didn't win the 60,000 at the end of the day, but they still made sure that we are now 4 for 4 in the teams going 5-4 in the end. That there has never been a blowout season of Tough as Nails.
Let's talk about the individual challenge. We went from 5 to 4 in the first hour, and we had to install some HVAC. And so, really, this competition was going to determine who was going to go into the overtime to be eliminated before we got to our final hour. And really, for this task, I don't know how, like, visually stimulating this was, connecting the the HVAC. I know for Ellery this one was a challenge.
Yeah, this one, yeah, not terribly fun to watch, this one. And again, devoid of any kind of context. It's like, just go to this place and do a chore. And we don't get to meet, like, our stalwart HVAC men and women who keep this country running.
Keep this country cool.
Yeah.
No, the only thing that made this entertaining was Mr. trying to be the Michael Winslow of the season and just shouting and grunting his way through the entire time.
Yeah, all I have in my notes for this challenge is Mr. Loud Noises.
Yeah, Mr. makes loud noises, and Ellery can't work his elevator, which, kind of feel like that they don't have anything like this on the fire truck.
No, they have a pole.
That's in the
usually
firehouse,
they're going down.
though.
They have the ladder that they're used to climbing.
Yeah.
They don't have an elevator on the...
They don't really work in scissor lifts. I don't think any hydraulics are really used within the firefighting industry.
But the ladder doesn't the ladder sort of do that? But it's a different mechanism.
Different mechanism. And then whenever somebody's doing like an out of the box strategy, it's either going to like go really great or not work out. For Ellery, putting the thing together on the floor was not the right move.
But that's the fun of Tough as Nails, is because we're all so damn ignorant about these things that we don't know what the right strategy is.
We're like, high variance.
Sounds like a good idea at the time, and then no, Ellery, you probably shouldn't have put the pieces together on the ground first.
Yeah, and this is another case of those. You watch enough Great British Bake Off, and you're just yelling at people like, don't use the Genoese sponge. It's far too delicate. And this is the same thing. I feel like you could get very head up into like, don't put the little round thing on it first. Just slide it in. Why are you putting it together on the ground first? What's wrong with you?
Yeah, because if you get it together on the ground, I don't know how you get it up on the ceiling then.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he was banking on it being together a little bit more, and you could just like heft it all up in one piece. Like just yeet it up there. I don't know.
Kobe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
For Mr. He ends up acing this one. He's going to the final four. He wins $9K here. Then I feel like that they just kind of like yada yada. Laren and George also advance.
Yeah, I think for Mr. I mean, this ended up being like a backdoor 5-hole for him because he used to be a pipe fitter before he was a welder.
And also, it's HVAC, and he is Mr. Freeze, Mike.
Yeah, do you think they missed the opportunity to install the HVAC for those ceiling tiles that they put in a couple of episodes ago over at the carpentry school?
They should have gone back.
Yeah, they should have been like, all right, well, we realized we forgot to put the HVAC in. We put the vents in, so here you have to do our dirty work for us.
Yeah, it could have been good to be continued.
Or at least it could have been like, if you were paying attention in this task, this will help you on a future task.
Oh, should there have been a memory challenge?
Sure. Or not even just a memory challenge, but like if you figured out a trick to this, you could, because I feel like so much of Tough as Nails is just, this is a trick I learned from this totally unrelated thing that I do in my job every day, and it translates. Like translatable skills is the foundation on which Tough as Nails is built.
Can I share something interesting that Tough as Nails may be like really like ahead of its time and could be like a real trend-setting show, because that ChatGPT has, been such a phenomenon, and there's like a lot of like white collar work that it turns out like might end up like not being as difficult to replace as previously thought. And I was watching a video recently where they said that actually the people who are going to be the highest paid people in the country are going to be the people that do the blue collar jobs, because that ChatGPT can't do that.
Yeah, I saw a blue-collar worker make $200,000 in one night.
in one night. Yeah.
Well, and I feel like the meme for years and years was that if you were working on like an assembly line in a factory floor, that was where a robot was going to replace your job. And it
Yeah.
turns out no, like all the content creators are going to get wiped out by the AI.
The ultimate irony that we couldn't write, but I'm sure an AI did.
Hoisted by our own petards.
Yeah. So yeah, Tough as Nails this was the first in trying making the trade sexy again. And now it turns out that that's the way to go.
Well,
The
we were
tw-
laying a lot of pipe, which was sexy.
Yeah, 20 years from now, it's going to be, Rob has ductwork.
Well, Rob may be chased out of the game sooner rather than later, apparently, according to recent news.
Yeah. And look, I'm ahead of the game. I've watched 4 seasons of Tough as Nails. Okay. So I'm ready to go back into the trades. And as I've learned that, it doesn't matter what you were doing before, you can pick up any of these trades in a couple of years and you're ready to go. Be an apprentice.
Just don't lay your HVAC out on the floor before the scissor lift. And that's all you need to know.
Well, you learned it. So now you're good to go.
Now we learned it. Okay. All right. We get our first OT of the night, and we're going to see Ellery versus Jake.
Building a WeWork table, basically.
Yeah. I felt like this was kind of a random thing on Tough as Nails of
Serve no purpose.
make a table.
Yeah, I only know one woman whose job is tables, and we don't typically ask about that. Yeah, this was odd. This is more so like, hey, can we make craft services, furniture happen? We're putting up the lunch right now, and our table's broke. So,
and
if you guys want to do that?
Also, there are pipes for some reason.
Yeah. And so, all right, we have to make the table, and it looked like the most dramatic moment was that Jake didn't realize that he had the wrong piece of pipe, and everybody was like, "Oh, we can't say anything," and then he figured it out.
Yeah,
that was it.
Now, if the team members did say something, would they receive like a 3-hour penalty? I'm not sure how that translates from The Amazing Race to Tough as Nails.
I don't know. I think that everybody's on the honor system, Mike.
Yeah, these are two honorific people. They're not in that capacity from other strategic reality shows.
Okay. Ultimately, Ellery gets eliminated, and Jake is moving on to the final 4. Good run for Ellery, oldest member of the cast, right?
Yeah, I think he did great.
Yeah, it was really touching to see the way that things ended with, like, again, this big, stoic, 54-year-old veteran and a firefighter, like, buckled over in tears just because he realized how much people loved him. And I think he puts forward like this really nice idea that no matter how old you are, this idea of masculinity and not showing your feelings is something that should not be espoused in this modern day and age. And the fact that he learned that like he can be free with his emotions and let the people in his life love him for who he is something that he needed and should have.
Okay. Let me go and talk about our second hour here. And we are going to have the battles out here of how do you work an excavator? Okay, let's see who can do the excavator battle. And then also at the same time, there's a little bit of a physical component of moving all of these heavy with it bags of cement.
Okay, I've got a problem.
Yeah.
It's concrete mix, but it's not spec mix.
Uh-oh.
Like, did we have a falling out with spec mix?
Yeah, I think.
Well,
you know what they said? Stop using our damn theme song for every other moment. That was our thing, Phil, and you're using it for this random biker man and his son. I feel insulted.
Yeah, is spec mix heavier than concrete?
I think they all come in like the same. I think they're all kind of parceled out the same.
Yeah, it's the old pound of feathers versus a pound of cement riddle.
Yeah. Yesterday morning, I texted a photo to Rob and Mike of a giant pallet of spec mix that was in my subway station. I was very excited.
So, Jess, how many of those did you carry at a time on the subway?
Well, they asked me to do it one at a time because they wanted to be very, very careful but I thought it'd be much faster if I just like took the whole pallet at
Yeah.
once.
Yeah,
You deadlifts. Yeah.
Jake is kind of a walking OSHA violation. The more I think about it, this man is kind of just bumbling his way about, tripping over things, forgetting about things. Here, yeah, he's possibly giving himself a hernia. Him and Laren, but he gets the job done, which I think is all that matters in Tough as Nails.
Yeah. Okay. So these heats were decided by, pulling a stake.
All those textbook stakes from
Yeah.
Tough as Nails.
I kind of thought Mister was going to get to pick who he wants. He just got to pick what stake he was going to select first.
I feel like we've done this a lot, right? That like this final individual challenge is usually a 2v2. I know one time it was like a literal 2v2 and then the two winners ended up being safe, but I don't know, it's an odd thing. I kind of would prefer just like a individual showdown instead of two randomly decided heats.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe there was a safety reason they couldn't do that. Like, I think they only had 2 excavators. This could be like they don't have, Tough as Nails has a budget, but they don't have a budget for 4 excavators.
Yeah, Tough as Nails season 1, I remember it was a forklift challenge. You had to navigate the forklift,
and that was whoever
then,
was the slowest.
Yeah.
Season 2 was the lineman challenge, which was they did in pairs together. And then season 3, I believe they did. I think they did like a skid steer loader, I want to say. So they really do love operate this heavy machinery for the final individual challenge.
Yeah. And we've all had toddler boys in our lives, so we know what all of these pieces of equipment are.
Yeah, I've experienced a lot of Blippi in my life. The word excavator has burned a hole in my memory at this point.
Blippi's the worst.
Yeah. All right. So in Heat 1, we had George versus Jake. What were those things that they had to put onto? Were they cannonballs? What were these things?
Orbs.
Yeah,
giant pinballs.
They love stakes and orbs in this finale because they had to pull the orbs on the tires with the giant spools, and now they had to delicately place the orb onto these little pipes. It almost reminded me of, okay, all your crew didn't show up for the job you have to do, so you have to do it all yourself, both operate the excavator and also haul a combined, 300 pounds of sandbags from one thing to another?
Yeah. So Jake was the one that had the experience working the excavator, but George was no slouch. He picked it up on the fly. Must have played skill crane.
Well, it's also, again, they talk about a gentle hand to be able to delicately place this ball.
That is not Jake.
Nope. Jake's hands are not dirty, but they are not gentle.
Yeah. All right. Jake gets the win in the first heat. Second heat ends up being Laren versus Mister. And Laren is also he's putting his football practice to good use here as he's carrying all of these bags around.
Yeah, he's like, do you even lift, bro?
Yeah. Mister couldn't believe it, how much Laren was carrying him.
Yeah, and maybe it was, I don't know, a bit of subliminal psychology for me. Once Laren talks about deadlifting, I swear, I don't know if it was the shirt he was wearing, but he looked so much more jacked in that challenge than I think I've ever seen him. Maybe it's also because usually in the individual challenges, he's kind of wearing the looser diesel mechanics uniform. Whereas here, he had it tucked in, he had the suspenders on, a la Blippi, perhaps.
Okay.
If there's one person I hate more than Tom Cruise.
It's Blippi.
Imagine Blippi in Cocktail. That'd be Jess's worst nightmare.
My God.
All right. So finally, it's Laren versus George here. And also Mister's going to pick up some money also for doing this. And so, Mister, nice consolation prize, I guess.
Yeah, he won that, and he won, all the team amounts that he won so far as well. So, yeah, he might be the second most winningest contestant in Tough as Nails history, considering that this season was the first one that they started putting individual cash prizes for the winners.
Okay. Then, finally, we get where it is going to be now Laren versus George, okay? And ultimately, they're going to have to remove the stake from the cement with the jackhammer.
It's more stakes. The
Mm-hmm.
stakes get higher and higher every time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, George, very sure-handed here. He's just like breaking off bigger pieces than Laren is able to. Ultimately, we see one point where George got like the jackhammer stuck. Looked
Yeah,
like some
Laren.
trouble for George for a
A
second.
lot of like one of the themes this episode was people with a cutting implement getting stuck in the thing they're trying to cut. This
Mm-hmm.
happened a few times.
Yeah.
I wonder how often it happens to the professional jackhammers.
Probably not very often. I
Mm-hmm.
think
Do you
they
think they
probably
handle their jackhammer better where they're not going to get it stuck in concrete?
You would think so, but I mean, who's to say?
who even knows?
Who
I mean, they're also
knows?
not doing it at like the pace that these two were. Of like, oh my god, I have to do it faster than this other jackhammer guy. Or
Yeah,
I'm gonna lose my
you're very
job.
rarely timed when it comes to using a jackhammer.
Mm-hmm.
It did seem to me that like Laren for a while was trying to big brain this. He was
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out, like, he was thinking of it the same way they were thinking of splitting the wood. He's like, is there a way I can work smarter and like get the right piece of concrete out? And I think there probably was. I just don't think you're going to figure it out when you need to do this in 30 seconds.
Right, because I think George was trying to just go for like the fault lines to break off the big pieces. Laren was trying to essentially circle around the middle for the first one. I think of like, if I dig a hole big enough, a divot around the stake, then I can just pull it out like the sword in the stone. And then he quickly realized, no, that's not the way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Excalibur.
Should
stake
that
hits in
be
stone.
a tough as nails challenge, Mike? That
Maybe
pulled, yeah.
Tough as Nails UK, maybe.
This is the inevitable Tough as Nails quest crossover.
Finally.
The
And-
royalty serve a tough role in this nation.
So finally, George ends up winning this thing, and Laren is eliminated. The thing that really blew my mind was that, you know, they're like, "Hey, Laren, don't worry, like you're only 22." It's like, what? Laren is 22?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I mean, he's a very mature guy.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, this guy, I don't know if it's like the facial hair. He looks significantly older. I think if you looked at the cast and said, who's the youngest person, the first one would obviously go to Allie. I would not
Yes.
think that Laren was the baby of the cast.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
Allie is so much older than Laren that they could practically not have gone to high school at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But Laren being 22 is like just like completely
Yeah.
blew my mind.
God,
he could just legally drink. He
Mhm.
I
probably
think of
can
what
just-
I was doing when I was 22. and
Yeah.
he's not old enough probably to rent a car, but can drive all these other construction vehicles around.
Right. He just did not, I mean this as a compliment. He did not come across like a kid on the show. Like I thought that he was like, you know, a peer of like all the other people that are on the show.
Yeah.
Who knew?
It's incredible. Well, I think also one of the things about working in the trades is I feel like it does working at a job
Not the
that
years,
tough.
it's the mileage.
Exactly. It imbues you with a sense of gravitas because you are responsible for so much directly like in your hands at any given moment. And it's like, if I screw up at my job, what is going to happen? Like a word is going to be spelled wrong on a website.
Mm-hmm.
These people screw up at their jobs, like somebody probably dies. So
Mm-hmm.
I can
So we
see
have that
where
fire
it might.
extinguisher on hand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good point. Also think about the fact that, yeah, Laren, I believe, said he was like Quincy, right, was going to go to college due to his football scholarship, ended up, you know, not happening. So he's probably been working as a diesel mechanic for about 4 years, which is a fair amount. I mean, I think his sort of contemporary counterpart, as well as George, who was only 24 and won the show. And he talks a lot
George is
of...
only 24?
George is 24 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. This was the season of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Jess and I talked about this actually back in early days, right? When I think there was another challenge like Allie did really well in, of like, oh, this could be the season where usually we're looking towards the elder statesman of the crowd. This time it might be the kids' time to take over, and this season truly felt like it. But I think it's because George certainly had his own, I think, unprecedented situation, right? Where he had to step into a very mature role early on. Plus, he dropped out of college and has worked for several years in his job as well. So age really is just a number in Tough as Nails,
This
and that
is
works
the
in
Gen
both
Z
ends.
Tough as Nails cast.
Yeah,
I hate it.
no cap, construction helmet.
Let's talk about the final challenge. We get our final three headed to the gauntlet. It's George, it's Jake, it's Mister. Okay. Phil tells us as they come in, here come a bunch of badasses. Welcome to the gauntlet.
I feel like whenever Phil is introducing a challenge, in his head, the Spec Mix song is playing, regardless of whether or not it's actually playing.
Well, I don't know if you noticed this, but as they were going into the HVAC challenge, there's a shot of Phil just going, "Yeah, tough as nails." Phil,
He loves his work.
you forget what show you were on for a
Mhm.
second? Did your mind just go to the Amazing Race of what you had to plan for? Yeah, it's as tough as nails, right?
Yep. Okay, we're at the pier, right? We're ready to go for the gauntlet, and look what's here. It's the all-new Ford Super Duty truck, one of the coveted prizes for the winner of Tough as Nails. Now, just as an aside, on another podcast I did this week, on the most recent Talking with T-Bird, T-Bird and I caught up with Yeah Man Champ,
Most famous
who
truck winner in reality TV history.
Yes. And so we're talking about with Yao Man, of course, obviously the incident with the truck and for anybody who doesn't know, back in Survivor Fiji, I think filmed in 2007, Yao Man won the Ford Super Duty, gave it to another contestant and made a deal. The deal did not go through, and it was kind of like a controversial moment in the season. And Yao Man told a story on the podcast and said that at the finale, there was a spokesperson from Ford that asked that they do not refer to the car as being a Ford Super Duty and just refer to it as the truck.
And this was also, I believe, right?
The
thing that
final
ended
time,
that ended the car
yes.
prep. Ford was like, "We're done. We're spec mixing right now. We're out of here."
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just so interesting that I didn't click in my head like, oh, Ford Super Duty. Oh, it's the same. I mean, they were looking for a show to get back in the CBS spec mix, I guess. So thankfully, Tough as Nails came along and no controversies here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to win a truck, you got to go on Tough as Nails.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Mister is a lot like Dreams, right? They both did flips after winning a challenge.
That's true.
I think the similarities end there, Mike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right. So Mr. versus Jake versus George. And boy, the gauntlet is really incredible. You gotta break through walls, you gotta stack things, you gotta drive a car through a wall.
That's my
You gotta go
favorite.
yeah.
That's my favorite. It has nothing to do with skill. It's just drive a car through a wall.
I'm reasonably certain of all the tasks on Tough as Nails, I would be the best at that one.
Mm-hmm.
Property damage, yes.
Yes, please.
Sir, you don't have a driver's license. You're like, yeah, screw it. I'm just going in one direction.
I can go in one direction into a wall. I think I can handle it.
Yeah, they make you drive the truck through the wall, Jess.
Yeah, there's so much to this challenge. Like, I immediately forgot everything he said as soon as the challenge started. It's like, I think we're gonna break something with a heavy thing. We're gonna get a saw to saw through a thing, and we're gonna saw through another thing. Gonna turn the crank, snap the plank, put the man in the pan, set the trap. I don't know. It was so much stuff, and that was actually fine because once they were doing it, it was like every next thing I'm like, oh, okay, they're doing that thing next, and it was fine, but it was a lot. It is a true gauntlet in every sense of the word.
I really enjoyed the family messages. It's sad that we obviously didn't get them in person. I think my favorite was Mr., who got to talk to his wife and children, and then we got to see, of course, his dad, who he admires, that he works alongside, and he says, "I come from him." And I don't know biology that well, but I don't think that's right.
Maybe.
Dead air while Rob ponders this.
Metaphorically?
I guess that's where it goes, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in a way.
Let's not get too literal minded here on this podcast. Yeah. We
More
all have children. We have to deal with this kind of like obtuseness on a daily basis.
Yeah, maybe
Mhm.
Mr. was just not told that when he was a child.
I mean, he just, yeah. I mean, it's an incomplete understanding of the way things work.
So we ended
Mhm.
up with a spec mixed metaphor.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. So we get to see everybody with their messages from their family, and we start with Jake's family, then Mister, then George, and we get going. And right out of the gate, seems like that George is just like a man possessed.
I really like the second the second the competition started, I'm like, this is all over. This is definitely George. But it ended up being a lot closer.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mister seems to make up some ground along the way.
Yeah, and I mean, they were pretty all in a good heat early on. Mr. actually ended up falling behind initially with the undo the chains on the tires, then put the tires on the car. During, of course, the best part, driving the car through the wall was great. First, with Jake getting to do what was intended, right, of them smashing into the water barrel and creating this big splash. And then Jake, being the incredible driver he is, like slowly inching up, parking, and even beeping the horn and probably putting the parking brake on as he ran out of the car.
Well, Phil said that he did a beautiful parking job. He didn't even crash into the water.
It's nice that they put the water there, so at least you know how to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
saw these were not like they didn't give them a brand new Ford Super Duty to drive in through the wall.
Beat up car to
Yeah, this was
drive
like
driving through the wall.
These should have been the damn vans.
Mm-hmm.
well,
Drive your
3 of
team's
them.
van through a wall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is it much of a wall, or is it just sort of like paper that you like run through at homecoming?
Presenting to you, Mr. Frost.
Yeah. Okay. So they go back and forth. George is cutting first. Mr. in true Mr. fashion, George is cutting first. Mr. He's always doing something different. Like sometimes it's worked, sometimes it hasn't.
Yeah, Mr. I think he also got very fortunate that this was a very grind-heavy season, both between the cutting of the shipping containers and here. Like, this was his catch-up moment where he was able to basically get right behind George, who also does like a cop thing and just like bursts his way shoulder first through the door once it's like 3/4 of the way done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can't fault him for trying to cut a corner there.
Mm-hmm.
Or trying to not cut a corner.
Grind a corner.
Grind a corner. Yeah. And it's really like neck and neck getting to the cargo nets. And it really was anybody's could have been a toss up, but then Mr. just missed. She's missed one nut.
Yep. I was about ready to get the whole thing up, and then he missed her.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so ultimately, he knew, couldn't unspool it. It was too late. George ends up with the win, climbing up the cargo net. Cargo net's intense.
I gotta say, it seems odd to me that they're doing all of this dangerous stuff, and then the thing they have to clip in for is the cargo net.
Climb the cargo net.
Because I know, Rob, you and I are children of the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a very different time back then. But I have distinct memories of being about 7 years old and climbing a cargo net to the very top of a gymnasium with no mats underneath and no harness of any kind.
Yeah, I just wonder maybe if they're just like so gassed at that point, they're worried about them just
That's a good point.
like falling backwards.
It's interesting. I did feel like, I guess, with the exception of Mr., though, with the sounds he's making, you never know if they're good sounds or bad sounds. Like, seems like there wasn't any, at least, like, visible exertion. I'm thinking back to the first one when, like, Murph is dripping the entire ionic sea level
Oh my God.
sweat
Yeah.
off his body. These guys seem like fairly cool when it came to just
We don't know
getting through
what
all
the
that.
temperature, like what month they filmed these in either.
Good point. Good point.
And LA is weird. It could be like, like 50 degrees or 80 degrees. So who knows? Must not have been, I guess, with Mr. Frost around, it wasn't too bad this time around.
Yeah, good thing he installed that HVAC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so ultimately, George is the winner. He's got the championship belt. I love that tough as nails championship. He did it for Sergio. And then in the final moments of the show, he said to everybody, "You're all hired."
Yeah, that's not a good idea. Because it's specifically George's construction company, and you've seen some of these people in these challenges. They're good at other things, but maybe not necessarily construction.
Well, you need
Mhm.
to have people that are good at a lot of different things, Mike. Like everybody has their talent. I think he's trying to build up like a general contracting brand.
Mhm.
And you have people that can do every single piece of the job. I love this for them. In fact, I think there is a real opportunity here, and the Tough as Nails community of
Mhm.
alumni from the show, they're pretty tight knit. A lot of them have gone into business together, as we see in the
Yeah.
final like Fast Times at Ridgemont High montage at the end.
Yeah, do you think that they should be starting like or Phil should be starting like his own like construction company and it's
Yes.
basically like, "Hey, whatever you need, we've got our team."
Yes, I think a Tough as Nails like franchise. Come
Mhm.
Mm.
on, that is a winner.
Yeah. Tough as
I'd
nails
hire
Or
general
him.
contractors, right.
the other thing that George could easily do is say, "You're all hired because we're taking over the show now, Phil. It's our show. There's more of us than there are of you.
They're going
Look
to
at
have a
Ah,
me.
coup?
Look at
collective
me.
bargaining.
I am the host now. This is George's show. King
Mhm.
George."
Wow.
Yeah, they're
Incredible.
gonna they're gonna unionize and like force leadership out.
Mhm.
"I stole your car, Phil.
Mhm.
I am the host."
Yeah, Phil trying to make the car theft joke happen at the very end was very classic Phil.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
also felt bad that he had to take the picture of the cast. Did you see that at one point that he was the one
Yes.
behind the camera? Like, Phil, there are people to do that. You can get in the picture.
Mhm. All right, and that's Tough as Nails season 4.
There it is.
Mhm. All right. What about big picture? Jess, any thoughts on Tough as Nails season 4 now that we've seen it from start to finish?
I think this is a great new chapter in the Tough as Nails saga. I think we've gotten 4 very different winners. Like if it was the same archetype every season, I think it would get stale. And of course, I wasn't happy that, we eliminate 7 contestants and 6 of them are women. That was not a great look for Tough as
Mhm.
Nails, but I do think that we had such a great variety of backgrounds and personalities, and to have a winner like George, who's very unlike any of the previous 3 winners, that was a really fun story to track throughout the season.
Yeah. On the subject of so many of the women being eliminated early, do you feel like the show needs to make an adjustment or did they just get unlucky this season?
Well, I think you've heard Phil go off about this subject. Like, he has
Yes.
very definite opinions on he's not gonna change anything
Mhm.
to try to weight it for gender, and
Mhm.
I think
And a
honestly, it was
woman did
just
win the show in season 3.
yeah. I mean, we had a woman winner, so sexism is over forever.
The Obama effect.
Yes, the Obama effect. But I think it was just the way things shook out this season. Like, if it happens again next season, you can find yourself another 3rd chair, but I don't think it will.
Mhm.
Yeah, it also looking at maybe some of the cast from this season, right? You had people like Ali and Sanithia, both of whom were like fairly young in their careers. You had someone like Renee, who perhaps was like one of the well, certainly had a lot of strength to her, was someone who perhaps would not necessarily match up to some of the more top tier members of this cast. I think someone like Alima could be someone that could compete with this group, but that I think was an unfortunate circumstance where because of that one challenge where she loses the thing where she was ahead, otherwise she makes it into this finale. So yeah, I think we're not necessarily waving any huge flags yet, but it's something to note.
Yeah,
Okay.
that actually brings something up, Mike, that I was gonna point out, that this is an interesting sliding doors universe as well. In that final gauntlet, get to the point where they are smashing the ice block with the sledgehammer, and Phil says they got to be careful not to break their saw. What
Mm,
happens at that point if somebody does break their saw?
you go back to the grinder.
You go back, you have to take the grinder up onto the.
Yeah, you have to grind the wood.
You need a really long extension cord for that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Maybe they just have another ice block with the, or they give you the stake and they say, okay,
How
chisel
many
the wood.
saws and blocks of ice could they have?
I, I, I'm not sure. It's
They
got to
have, they
be.
have a backup in case one melts?
They got to have a backup.
Yeah,
But
you
Mhm.
got to have
yeah,
some on standby.
Hmm.
yeah, you got to. You always throw the first pancake out, right?
That's what they say. Um, all right. Tough as Nails season 4 is in the
Yeah.
books. We'll see when Tough as Nails returns for another go round. It has not been filmed yet, correct?
Yeah, I don't believe so, but I'm excited. I thought this was a really fun season. I think to repeat a point that we made last week, I would say that maybe the personalities were not
Yeah.
top tier out of this world. Maybe I don't know if this is the tail wagging the dog or anything, but I do feel like we missed out on a lot of those personal sit down moments. I feel like we were told a lot of stuff rather than shown a lot of stuff in terms of people's backstories. But I am thrilled with George as a winner. I thought he has an incredibly unique personality type. We talked about this with Murph that reality TV usually is not an introvert's game, that they usually do not pick those types of people that are more likely to stand back and just kind of keep to themselves. And that was George. And I loved hearing his story, seeing the fact that he had to grow up really quick and become incredibly competent with what he does, and seeing that translate as well, but then also have him hit stumbling blocks too. Everyone went into overtime at one point. This is probably like the most even field season of Tough as Nails we've ever had, down to how many neck and neck finishes did we have this
Hmm.
entire season. I think that's the mark of a good season of reality TV, in my opinion. I still don't know how I'd rank it against the other seasons, but just going off of recency bias, I think it's at least like top 2 for me. I really enjoyed getting to watch this season. It feels like while they are a well-oiled machine in the way that the show is done, there's also new things being done, like the way strategy is being brought in and some of these new challenges that they're using that makes me excited. I feel like it's hitting the perfect balance. It's taking the axe head and hitting it right at the spot where it should to split the wood into season 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jess, who do you think we could see come back to host some challenges with Phil?
Oh, this is a good question. I think we got to see Sergio. I feel like
Sergio, yeah, Sergio was a big
he
personality.
was a big personality this season. I think we definitely got to see him.
Yeah.
Love to see Ellery come back. I think we're overdue for another firefighting challenge.
Hmm.
Um,
I think Mister might be
Mr.
good.
Might, yeah, Mr. Might be
Yeah,
good.
they'd use him for the welding challenge. Jake would be a great
Mm.
personality. I have no idea how you do a pipeline challenge.
Hmm.
If there's a way to do it, Tough as Nails will figure it out. And I know that Phil is particularly fond of Jake, so I think that is something we could see.
Hmm. Okay. All right, let's leave it there for Tough as Nails season 4. Now, I know you two got together for another podcast this past week as you two are back at it on more adventures together, much like the cast of Star Trek Picard.
Getting the old band back together, Rob. I understand that you were salty that you didn't get to talk about Picard, and so you went off and started your own podcast about it.
There's a lot of that going on
Yeah,
these
you said
days.
no,
Yes.
Apparently,
no, no PSR, no PSR
Hmm.
fleet. That
Yes.
only. Well,
Yes.
PSR fleet.
I guess for people will check out obviously you talking with Josh Regler, but as a bit of a sneak preview, what did you think about the premiere?
I thought it was fine. Like I found that like I'm a little frustrated with the episodic format of
Hmm.
the show. Like I kind of feel like, all right, I'm ready. Let's just do it. And I feel like that the episodes don't really stand alone on like their own two legs, like like a normal like episodic survivor or a Star Trek episode typically do. So I just felt like it was like the start. It was like the first hour of a movie, and I felt like a little bit like, all right, this is a frustrating way to experience this.
Yeah, that's a very similar conclusion that we came to as well. I do wish they had pulled a Star Wars and done the first 2 episodes dropped at once. Maybe that would help things, but we got Picard and Riker being together as old
Yeah,
fogies, so we can't complain too much.
yeah, fun moments around for sure. But I felt like that. Like, hey, I was told we're getting the band back together. Like, let's
No,
let's make it happen.
we're doing the Blues Brothers, where we're slowly bringing one person in at a time.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, of course, there's going to be more Star Trek Picard to come. So be sure to catch Jess and Mike's coverage of that over on post show recaps. Just anything else you're working on?
Right now that's about it for me. I kind of have a critical mass of podcasts.
Okay. All right. Well, to bring in the other side of that equation, a man who does not have a critical mass of
It's true.
podcasts,
Yeah,
Mike?
my pipeline is completely open at this point. There's no fasteners. It's just like straight flow from one end to the other. Well, I mentioned Star Wars, and we are about to have a lot of Star content on our screen soon as The Mandalorian is finally returning for season 3. So I did a kickoff podcast with DM Philly and Brendan Fitzpatrick, basically reminding everyone what happened, as well as maybe filling some people in on what happened on other shows that is vitally important to The Mandalorian for some stupid reason. But I'm really excited. I've been rewatching the first 2 seasons, and I just forgot how damn good the show is. So that's coming back on Wednesday, March 1st. I'll be doing recaps day of with that with DM Philly. Also covering The Last of Us, which is in its final third. Had one of my favorite episodes yet this past week. Covered that with Grace Leader. I also appeared on a RHAP game night with Grace and a bunch of illustrious people. Our own Savage Crew, in a manner of speaking, playing Sushi Go. That replay is still available. And then we are gearing up, right? Changing hands, much like Allie did with the wood,
Mhm.
as we are hanging up our Tough as Nails caps and putting on our Survivor buff. Survivor 44 is a week away, airing on March 1st, and we will have our usual coverage. I'll be doing my interviews over at parade.com. Liana and I already have a B&B up in which we get into a ridiculous yet incredibly animated argument for a significant portion of time. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We'll be doing those on the weekends as well. And also be talking Australian Survivor next week, talking about a very different type of George and whether he might have a similar placement finish
Mhm.
in a season of television, but what has been an incredible season of Australian
Yes.
Survivor.
This George has not declared war yet on the other team. So
No, I can't imagine him delivering the same sound bites with the voice that he has, and vice versa.
no. Okay. All right. And that's going to do it for us here tonight. Of course, check out everything we have going on over at robhetsawebsite.com. It's been so fun to do another season of Tough as Nails with you both. Hope everybody enjoyed the coverage this season. We'll be back 1 week from tonight. We will have our Survivor for first episode recap with Stephen Fishback on Wednesday, March 1st. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.